Have with us Shirley DioGuardi. She is a Balkan Affairs Advisor to the Albanian American Civic League, a position she has held since 1995, together with her husband, who is a former member of Congress, I might add, a very well-respected member of Congress. She has worked to bring lasting peace and stability to the Balkans. Shirley is a former publisher of the Lawrence Hill books, specializing in domestic international politics. And then in 1995, she published Yugoslavia's Ethnic Nightmare, first book on the causes and consequences of the Balkan conflict. She has worked closely with the Albanian communities and holds a bachelor's degree in sociology from Oberlin College and a master's in divinity from the Union Theological Seminary in New York.
Mr. Chairman, first of all, thank you for giving me the opportunity to testify. I will be submitting my testimony for the record and summarizing it here. I would also like to take this opportunity to append to my testimony a recent article in the Eurasia Review by Fatun Bislimi entitled, "The Politics of Compromise is Compromising Kosovo's Future."
That will be, with no objections, that will be attached to your testimony.
Thank you. I want to note that it is primarily in this hearing room among all the governmental bodies in the West that the hard questions about the Balkan conflict have been asked over the past 2 decades. Under former Chairman Gilman, Hyde, Lantos, the serious effort was made to reveal and explore the realities on the ground in South Central Europe during Serbian dictator Slobodan Milosevic's brutal 10-year occupation of Kosovo and genocidal march across the Balkans that ultimately claimed 200,000 lives and left 4 million displaced. It was here that the vote was cast to support NATO airstrikes against Serbia, which finally brought the Kosovo War to an end in 1999 and ended the Balkan Wars of the 1990s. Mr. Chairman, in my opinion, it cannot be more timely to have this particular hearing now in your subcommittee, raising questions about the resolution of the Balkan conflict just days after Catherine Ashton, the European Union's High Representative, has proclaimed a successful outcome to 10 rounds of talks between Belgrade and Pristina. If the outcome were genuinely successful, this hearing would not be necessary, but unfortunately, in my opinion, the agreement between Serbian Prime Minister Dačić and Prime Minister Thaci is a quick fix. It does not amount to a comprehensive and effective agreement that will bring lasting peace and stability to the region. In my opinion, this will only happen when Serbia recognizes Kosovo's sovereignty and its admission to international institutions, grants equal civil and human rights to the Albanian majority in the Preševa Valley, on a par, I might add, with the rights that are currently enjoyed by Serbs in Kosovo, relinquishes its parallel structures in northern Kosovo, and focuses on the economic and political development of Serbia. Once that happens, Kosovo's government will need to focus on the establishment of a genuine democracy and rule of law, something that it has failed to do because of its lack of sovereignty and the corruption of many of its government officials. The 15-point agreement on April 19 does not, in my opinion, as Catherine Ashton has declared, amount to a step closer to Europe for both Serbia and Kosovo. On the contrary, it will allow Serbia to interfere in the internal affairs of Kosovo. With this agreement, Serbia will be allowed to enter into the membership negotiations with the EU through a false demonstration of neighborly relations with Kosovo, and ultimately to achieve what has always been its primary goal: the denial of Kosovo's sovereignty and the acquisition of northern Kosovo. Now, how have we arrived at this point? It is the result, in my opinion, of 3 interconnected patterns in the post-war period that still continue 13 years after the war. 1, delaying the resolution of Kosovo's final status, its declaration of independence notwithstanding. due to a misguided Western foreign policy approach that has appeasing Serbia as its centerpiece. 2, successive U.S. administrations taking a backseat to Europe when it comes to policy in the Balkans. And 3, Belgrade's efforts to destabilize Kosova with the goal of making the de facto partition of northern Kosova a legal, de jure reality. We had, a different chance at war's end. The Clinton administration and the EU could have recognized Kosova's inevitable independence, informed Belgrade that it had forfeited its legitimacy to govern Kosova, and set Serbia on a path to democratization. But as we know, this isn't what happened. Kosova became a protectorate of the UN, and even today, because a large number of member states in the UN General Assembly have not recognized Kosova's sovereignty, and especially because 5 member states in the EU, Spain, Cyprus, Greece, Romania, and Slovakia, still refuse to do so, Kosova's political, economic, and social progress, like Bosnia, has been stymied. For the past 15 years, or 13 years, I should say, almost 14, we have witnessed a foreign policy in the U.S. State Department that instead of being prevention-oriented and making human rights the centerpiece, it instead has constructed policy frameworks to delay the resolution of Kosovo's final status and admission to the EU, NATO, UN, and other international institutions. I don't believe that it serves the United States to continue to distance itself from the resolution of the Balkan conflict by deeming it Europe's problem. Contrary to what our State Department has said today, whenever the United States has taken a backseat to Europe, and I still believe it has, the situation in the region has deteriorated because the EU's diverse 27 member states have not been able to coalesce around a common foreign policy apart from America's political and military leadership that has been true for over a decade. The Obama administration has been publicly holding the line that the de facto partition of northern Kosovo should not become legal, but they actually haven't taken any action to back up the position. For more than 2 decades, Belgrade has been able to move into that vacuum created by the lack of unity and lack of resolve among the EU member nations, between the EU and the US, and all the more so because the guiding principle of the EU and our government has been appeasement. Belgrade's goal has always been to achieve its expansionist aims in Kosovo diplomatically by legalizing the partition of northern Kosovo, just as it achieved its expansionist aims in Bosnia by force, when at the end of the Bosnian War in 1995, it was awarded with the artificially created Republika Srpska. Ever since the war ended in June '99, there's been an effort to destabilize the North. Now, and this I'll conclude, in a final push to resolve the conflict between Belgrade and Pristina in order to achieve the principle of exiting the region, the EU, with the support of the U.S. government, has proclaimed an agreement that unfortunately papers over the roots of the conflict and the realities on the ground. The Balkans are again at risk because the current agreement does not grapple with the roots of the Balkan conflict and doesn't carve out a real solution. I think the time has come to ask all parties, the U.S. government, the EU, Serbia, what do they really want? Will Belgrade struggle to retain Kosovo at all costs? And will Serbia become part of Europe? The current accord enables Belgrade to enter into membership talks with the EU, but without dismantling the structures of northern Kosovo, without recognizing Kosovo's sovereignty, without acknowledging Kosovo's right to enter bodies. Will the U.S. and the EU decide what they really want? A whole divided, undivided, peaceful, democratic, and prosperous EU, or a periphery of failed aid-dependent societies that saddle it with economic and law enforcement responsibilities? To prevent a costly and potentially deadly conflict going forward, the West will have to rethink its diplomatic strategy. We need a new paradigm for how we handle foreign policy in the Balkans and elsewhere. Again, one that emphasizes conflict prevention and human rights, not stability at all costs. Thank you.